It's the season after the season. TCU's magical Cinderella run is in the past, so here is what the upcoming slate looks like. First, you got a date with Coach Prime and the Buffs in Week 1, and Big 12 play kicks off with new conference foe Houston in Week 3, but I personally am circling the rematch at Kansas State in October. Here to talk a little bit more about the upcoming season is Jeremy Clark of HornedFrogBlitz. Let's start with the offense. New offensive coordinator Kendal Briles comes in. Chandler Morris now expected to take over for the Heisman runner-up in Max Duggan. How different will this year's offense look compared to last?
It's different, but it's the same in some ways. You're going to see a lot of running the football. This goes back all the way to when you saw Art Briles at Baylor back in 2014, and Kendal Briles was part of that staff. They always wanted to run the football, but you're going to see a lot of throws downfield. They want to get the vertical game open as well. But going out in fall camp and watching the 15 practices that we were able to see, even going back to spring camp, one thing that really stuck out to me was the tempo of this offense. Last year under Garrett Riley, they had explosive offense. They made some big plays throughout the season. Obviously, they scored a lot of points. This year, you're looking at an offense that is going to run more tempo. They're going to get the tight end involved. They're going to have a lot of weapons to spread the ball around. The weapons they lost, guys like Quentin Johnston, Kendre Miller, Max Duggan, those are big names to replace. But as you mentioned, Chandler Morris, he's come in. He had a great spring camp, had a great fall camp. He's throwing the football extremely well right now. And a lot of people still don't remember that Chandler Morris won that battle over Max Duggan last year to win the starting quarterback job. But one thing I would say about Chandler in this offense, it's a perfect fit. Chandler Morris is a great run pass option quarterback. He can make plays with his feet. He improved his passing over the summer. He's thrown the ball extremely accurately in fall camp and really through 7-on-7 in every session he had this summer. But the receivers, I would say, is going to be the most talented group of receiver possibly in the Big 12. I mean, they've got a 4 deep at X, a 4 deep at Z. They've got slots all over the place. JoJo Earl, John Paul Richardson. This is an offense that people aren't going to be talking a lot about before the season starts, but by the end of the season, I think you're going to be mentioning Kendal Briles as one of those offensive coordinators, as one of the top at his position in the country.
Yeah, it'd feel kind of weird to say Chandler Morris taking over for Max Duggan since the opposite was true last year. So you said it's going to be similar but different. On the defensive side of the ball, very similar. TCU has 7 returning starters, including the preseason All-American corner, Josh Newton. This is a deep unit, especially you see there with the highlighted in red on the secondary where they returned 4 of 5 total starters. Why do we need to be paying closer attention to the Horned Frog D here?
Well, this is Joe Gillespie's second year running the 3-3-5, and when you have 7 returning starters on that side of the ball, you're going to have experience. You've got a great secondary, as you mentioned, Josh Newton. He's one of the top cornerbacks in the country. Made big plays last year. Everyone kind of talked about Trey Hodges-Tomlinson. He won the Jim Thorpe Award, but Josh Newton, man, he just came in, made a lot of great plays, became the leader of that defense. He's a very vocal guy. People gravitate toward Josh Newton. I think him coming back and being part of this defense is going to be huge for them. But you look at the back end, the secondary, Bud Clark, Mark Perry, Millard Bradford, Josh Foster is a guy that's come on strong in fall camp that's made this battle at safety look even more intriguing against Millard Bradford. So it's going to be good to see those guys return in the secondary. But the linebacker group, Johnny Hodges, Jamoy Hodge, 2 of the better linebackers in the Big 12, and Nnamdi Obiazor. I want you guys to remember that name because this is a guy that head coach Sonny Dykes has talked about a lot in fall camp, talked about him in spring camp as well. Joe Gillespie is very high on him, 6'3", 225 pounds. It's a guy that is filling in for the departed D Winters, made a lot of plays in fall camp. I expect him to make big plays for that defense. But if you look at football, it starts in the trenches. You're going to have to have a good defensive line, and you don't get a better defensive lineman than nose tackle Dominic Williams in the Big 12. Played very strong as a true freshman last year. If they can find some guys to step up at defensive end for them, they've had some guys play well in fall camp. That's the biggest question right now. They look good in fall camp, but as you always say, you got to see it in the game, and that's what we're kind of all waiting for is the media and fans. Can't wait to see them play against Colorado next week.
Speaking of Colorado coming to town Week 1, and Jeremy, there is not a team in the nation with more unknowns than this Buff squad. How does TCU prepare for Coach Prime's, I'll call it revamped, really return roster?
Man, it's like an entirely new program they're going against. I mean, just go back and watch We asked Sonny about that. How do you prepare for a team that you don't know a lot of the roster? You know some of the coaching. You go back and watch where these coaches have coached before, what kind of offense they run, what kind of defense, how they play in certain situations. But it's a lot of unknown right now. If you look at last year, I mean, this is not going to be the same Colorado team. Are they going to be 1-11? Absolutely not. I think Deion's going to go in there and turn that program around pretty quick. But I also feel really good about what TCU's returning this year. Everyone talks about the names that TCU lost. I mentioned them earlier, the offensive names, some of the defensive names. But I've been covering this team since '05, and some people look at me when I say this like I'm crazy, but top to bottom, this might be the most physically impressive and athletic team I've ever seen TCU field. They're not loaded in the sense of being experienced on some positions, but they are loaded as far as just athleticism, players that can make plays. And it's going to be fun to watch them develop. And that Colorado game, I mean, I tell you what a better way to start the 2023 season to have a Deion Sanders coach team coming into Fort Worth. Crowd is going to be there. It's going to be hot. It's been 110 down here in Texas for 70 straight days or something like that. But it's going to be hot on September 2nd. And it's definitely going to be fun to watch Deion and his P5 coaching debut. But I really feel confident that TCU is going to go out there and get things done. And right now, I feel extremely comfortable about that 20-point spread that Las Vegas has for them right now.
Yeah, that is quite the big gap. But man, it's crazy to think about where we were this time last year, getting ready to play on the road at Colorado, and now knowing what we know and what TCU was able to accomplish last season, and now the Buffs coming with new head coach to Fort Worth to play. So it should be interesting. Jeremy, thank you so much for the great breakdown. Make sure that you are checking out all the great work at HornedFrogBlitz.com. I always have trouble with that one, but you will not have trouble finding everything you need to know about TCU football and recruiting. And as always, for more exclusive information, become a VIP member.